Happy Friday, North Texas. I'm Scott, and I am on my own again this week. Today is Friday, October 3rd, and we're going to get right into it and check in with Zac Babb for the Mean Green Minute.
North Texas soccer jumped back into the win column yesterday with a 1-0 shutout win over Temple. Mia Bernard scored the game winner in the 79th minute to improve the Mean Green's record to 5-8-1 on the season. Volleyball is on the road in conference play for the first time this year with a Friday road game at Florida Atlantic in Boca Raton. That gets underway at 5 p.m. And then they're in South Florida to face Tampa at noon on Sunday. Football is on a bye week this week. They have no game, but a big one coming up next weekend, next Friday to be exact, against South Florida at DATU Stadium. That is a 6:30 p.m. start next Friday.
Always appreciate the reporting from Zac there. The Mean Green Minute has been a great addition to the podcast this year, so I wanted to take some time to let Zac properly introduce himself to you, dear listener. I caught up with him this week to talk about his time at UNT, his broadcasting career, and the historic season the football team is having so far. All right, Zac, so let's start out with just the basics. Tell me when you graduated from UNT and what your degree was in.
So I graduated in December of 2017. I initially did 2 years at a community college down in Houston where I grew up, and then transferred to UNT to do my last 2.5 years there and got my degree in the full name for it is Converged Broadcast Media. Which is just really a fancy way of saying broadcasting with all the bells and whistles.
What made you choose UNT coming up from Houston?
Really, it's kind of a funny story because, when I was first looking at colleges, I knew I wanted to get into sports broadcasting. That was kind of my love as I was coming up through the high school ranks, and didn't really know where I wanted to go to school, and I actually took one of those. I always want to call it an aptitude test, but that's not what it is. It's basically just one of those things where you put in what you're interested in and answer a bunch of questions, and it spits out some colleges for you. And so I think it was my junior year of high school. I took one of those, and it threw UNT at me, and I hadn't even heard of UNT at the time. But I went up and visited and fell in love with it, and fell in love with Denton, and kind of it was kind of an accident that I found UNT to begin with, and it ended up being one of the best accidents I've ever stumbled into in my life.
Nice, that's awesome. Let's see here. And you mentioned you knew you wanted to do sports broadcasting like all the way back from high school. But that's always been the goal.
That was always kind of the goal. I was one of the weird kids who, in addition to having a favorite athlete, I had a favorite play-by-play guy when I was growing up watching sports. So I had I had a love for it that kind of goes back a long ways, and I've always kind of had an interest in it, so it was kind of from an early age. I knew I wanted to get into sports broadcasting, and then when UNT and its track record of the people it's pushed out and into the sports broadcasting world and things of that nature, it was kind of a no-brainer to end up going there.
Yeah, that's funny. I got to ask now. So who's your favorite play-by-play guy?
Oh man, active at the moment is probably Kevin Harlan. He does Monday Night Football on ESPN, or not on ESPN, on the radio. And then he does a lot of college basketball, and then NFL on CBS. He has a game every Sunday. But all time is probably Gary Thorne. My family's originally from Minnesota, my dad's side, and so we're all big hockey fans as a result of that. Nice. And Gary Thorne did the NHL on ESPN when I was growing up in the 90s and early aughts. So he was the one who probably influenced me the most overall, but he's retired now. But nowadays it's Kevin Harlan.
Very nice. All right, so we talked about what brought you to UNT. Let's talk about your time here. What's like one of your most memorable moments as a student, whether it was going to a game or a class that made a big impact to you or anything like that? What was your most memorable moment from UNT?
I think my most memorable moment, which I don't know if I can whittle it down to exactly 1 week that it was, because I took Hank Dickinson's sports broadcasting class.
Nice.
And I actually took it for 2 semesters because there's sports broadcasting 1 and sports broadcasting 2. It was a once a week class on a Wednesday night, and Professor Dickinson just brought in everyone under the sun you can think of who's a mover and shaker in the sports media world in DFW.
Yeah.
And so just taught, and it would be nothing but a presentation from them, and that was pretty much the whole class. We had kind of a final paper we had to write about it, but just getting to talk to those people and rub elbows with them and ask them questions and stuff like that for a 2.5 hour block on a Wednesday night every week for a full school year was just not only good from a building connections standpoint, which is very important in any profession, but especially in sports broadcasting, but just learning what those men and women did and how they got their starts and how they came up. And a lot of them came up through UNT too. So it was kind of cool to see okay, you were in my shoes at one point in this class, 30 years ago, whatever it might be. So to kind of have something to relate to, people who had been where I was, and then people who had succeeded at the highest level in their industry, and just to kind of get to know them a little bit was probably the most invaluable class and invaluable, really long-term moment I ever had at UNT.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one for me too. I also took that class. Hank was great, and I remember he brought in Mark Followell from the Mavericks. He brought in Ralph Strangis, who was with the Stars at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember an assignment from that class was like, just go out to a game, can be a professional, can be a UNT game, whatever. Just go sit in the stands and record yourself doing play-by-play.
Yep.
For me, that I got connected with the Texas Tornado minor league hockey team out in Frisco. What did you do when you had to go out and practice your play-by-play?
I ended up lashing on to Denton ISD high school football. Actually, they had a KNTU at the time had a Denton ISD game of the week that they did on their airwaves on 88.1 on the campus radio station. And so I was lucky enough with my time at KNTU as well. I got to hop in the play-by-play seat for that. So that was kind of a stroke of luck. I'm being in the right place at the right time with KNTU. But yeah, I just turned in my my Denton ISD game of the week tapes.
Nice. So now let's talk about post-graduation. You said you graduated in 2017. What have you been up to since then? Where can people hear you calling games and stuff?
Man, it's still kind of all over the place. And I look back at the whatever 8 years it's been since I've graduated now. I worked for iHeartMedia for 4.5 years. I did stuff in their traffic operations department immediately when I graduated. In the middle of that, I started doing sideline reports for the UNT football team on their radio broadcasts. That was in 2018. After 2018, that carried on through 2021, and then they relocated me into the studios in 2022. And I started doing the halftime show and pregame show, postgame show, things of that nature on the radio broadcast. At the same time, in 2022, I got hired by UNT and KNTU specifically. I was their sports and events manager for, I guess, almost 3 years. And so I did that at the same time. As this all overlaps, 2019, scooting back a little bit, I got the play-by-play job for the women's basketball team on campus on the radio. So I did their games for 6 years, just recently left that. Recently left KNTU as well within the last year or so. And so now I'm in, and then it's evolved even more. So now I'm with the football team again, and I'm not in the studio is now mobile. So I'm now traveling with the team, but I'm still doing a lot of the pregame, postgame, halftime show stuff like that, but now I'm just doing it from on site. And so that's kind of the overlapping, layered cake that's been my sports broadcasting journey for the last 8 years since I've graduated, is picking up things here and there, putting down things here and there. And but at the center of it all still is UNT, because I've fell in love with that place and loved Denton and love North Texas. And so it's always kind of still at the end of the day revolved around, okay, what can I do for my alma mater?
Yeah, that's great. And then looking forward, what's kind of the ultimate goal? What's the dream gig that you're shooting for at the end of the day?
Man, the dream gig to end all dream gigs for me, which it's a home run, Hail Mary, whatever sports metaphor you want to use, would be to be the play-by-play voice of the Dallas Stars, because there's such a high love of hockey in my family's life. I mean, it's the sport I grew up on. I grew up on the Stars, and when they were still the Minnesota North Stars, it was my dad's team growing up when he was in Minnesota, and so he moved to Texas and was just like, well, I'll keep following them. So I was raised on the same team he was. So that would be the dream job. To end all dream jobs would be the Stars. But to tell you the truth, I mean, I'm just I'm very happy where I'm at right now with UNT. And, it'd be cool to jump in the play-by-play chair one day at North Texas for football and maybe men's basketball or something. But in the meantime, I'm still getting to work with, Hank Dickinson does the color commentary, Dave Barnett, who's a 2-time Emmy winner and a grad of UNT himself, does the play-by-play right now. So I'm getting to work with a 2-time Emmy winner and a guy who's been in the color chair for 30 years. So it's still it's a lot of fun where I'm at right now. So I'm in no itch to exactly jump ship.
Yeah. That's funny. That was kind of my dream job too when I was at UNT. Not play-by-play, but I studied journalism, and so I wanted to run their website and do the reporting for them. My first job out of college, I worked for FC Dallas doing that job, but for them. And I think they have a 34 game schedule compared to the Stars 82. And I was like, oh boy, this is a grind. I don't know if I can handle 82 games a year.
I learned that too, doing the play-by-play for the women's basketball team, because it's like, they only have a 30 game schedule. And I'm like, you get to game 28 or whatever, and you're like, wow, man, this season's been going. If you were in the NHL or the NBA, it's like you still got another 50 of these to do.
Yeah. All right, and then you've been doing the Mean Green Minute for this year. It's been a great new addition to the podcast, and so I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about football a little bit. They've got a 5-0 start, best start since 1959. Let's talk about that a little bit.
1959. Yeah, it's incredible. It's both sides of the football and special teams, all three phases, whatever football coach cliche you want to use. All three phases are humming right now. Special teams has been great. Offense has been great, which if anyone who's followed the team closely for the last couple of years, a team that's led by Eric Morris is going to have a high-flying offense. But the defense, I think, has been the most impressive thing, because it's been a while since we've had a good defense here at North Texas, and there's always that kind of bit within it of if North Texas can get a defense, even a halfway decent defense in here, then they can be really good at football. And now they have not only a halfway decent defense, they got a pretty good defense. And thus you're now looking at the first 5-0 start in 66 years here on campus in football. So it's been fun to see them fly around. We already have, I think the defense has forced 11 turnovers in the first 5 games, and we had like 16 all of last season in 13 games. So it's been a lot of fun to watch this team succeed. And you're around the players and you're around the coaches and stuff like that, and you see the human element of it more when you're kind of in the room with the radio broadcast team. So to see all those guys succeed too has been really rewarding, because it's a lot of good people on that roster and on that coaching staff, and so to see them succeed like they have has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And then on the offensive side, a big storyline this year has been starting with the bowl game. Yes, last year, Drew Mestemaker. For any listeners who aren't familiar, kind of give them a brief rundown of his story.
Yeah, it's maybe one of the more wild stories in college football this decade, because he did not play quarterback basically from 9th grade B team. So he wasn't even on the top flight freshman team as a high schooler. Yeah. His last start before the bowl game last year at quarterback was 9th grade B team. So he was always kind of in the wings at Austin Vandergrift High School, kind of waiting, but there'd always be some situation that would prevent him from being the starting quarterback at Vandergrift. Whether it was a quarterback who's committed to Louisville, moving into Vandergrift from out of town, somewhere else in the state, or whatever it may be, or like he was under Chandler Morris last year, but he walked onto the football team and has just shot up the depth chart, and is just the word I hear the most from the coaching staff around is he's just a sponge in terms of how he learns and processes new information, because now he's gone from didn't start a game from 9th grade all the way up to the end of his freshman year of college, so basically a 5-year gap in there between quarterback starts, And now he's one of the more efficient quarterbacks in all of college football this year. I mean, he's great at protecting the football. He has 0 interceptions to 11 touchdowns this year. He's thrown it around the yard to different receivers. I think we've had all of our games this year, he's had at least 6 or 8 different receivers catch a pass. So it's an incredible story. He's a very humble kid, but it's wild to think that this guy who's led North Texas to its best start on the football field in 66 years. He's really started 6 games since his freshman year of high school, and all 6 of those have come in the calendar year of 2025, with the bowl game being on January 3rd this past year.
Yeah, it's a great story, and just like resilience of sticking with it until you're able to get your shot and then making the most of it.
Yeah, 100%.
And then let's see here. So football's on the bye this week, right? And then we have a Friday night game on October 10th, and that should be a pretty good test too, I think, against South Florida.
Yeah, that's going to be an early forerunner for, okay, how good does North Texas stack up in the rest of this conference? Because they're 4-0 in non-conference games, 1-0 in conference with that overtime win over Army up at West Point. But, I mean, South Florida is good. I mean, they are a good football team. They had probably one of the best starts in the nation among the group of 6, if you want to call them that North Texas is a part of, the class of schools that aren't power programs. But, I mean, they started off beating Boise State, who was the torchbearer for the group of 6, a top 25 team at the beginning of the season. They beat Boise State. Then they go into Florida in Gainesville and beat a ranked Florida team in Gainesville. And, the only blemish on their schedule is they played a top 5 Miami team that beat them. Otherwise, they're 3-1 right now. They're probably going to be 4-1 after this weekend because they play a Charlotte team on Saturday that's not very good. So you're really going to see what this team's made of next Friday night when South Florida comes to town, because that's 2 potentially American Conference champion caliber teams meeting up in Denton on Friday night.
Yeah. Should be a fun one. We'll look forward to seeing how that goes and hearing about it from you on the Mean Green Minute. Zach, thank you again for taking the time to join us. Can we get a Go Mean Green?
Go Mean Green.
It's been so great getting to work with Zach on the podcast collaboration this year, but it was really nice to get a chance to sit down and have an actual conversation and learn more about his story. Remember, folks, you can let us know what you think about the show by emailing podcast@unt.edu or give us a call at 940-565-4341. You can also help us grow by telling a friend about the show, sharing it on social media, or leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen. Until next time, we hope you have a happy Friday, North Texas, and go Mean Green. Happy Friday, North Texas is a production of the University of North Texas. Today's show was produced and edited by Scott Brown with original reporting by Scott Brown. For more information, visit unt.edu/podcast.